Well, you mentioned forgiveness. How does you write in the book about a young Indian friend of yours who had like the greatest grades and the perfect SATs and got rejected from everybody? I mean, for all the top institutions. How does this person forgive? How does this person become part of the solution? Like what is that person supposed to elaborate on the story if you don't mind, and then tell us what is that person supposed to do?
Plays out. He's a young guy entering college now. So he's a guy who had whatever, I forget the exact score, 1550, let's call it in the SAT, and above 4.0 GPA, call it a 4.5 plus GPA. Great extracurricular activities, appeared to be a good writer. And I'll preface this by saying, as best as somebody can tell, there's nothing wrong with this kid. Applies to 15 of the top 30 universities in the country, gets rejected from every single one of them. Now, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's getting that rejection one after another. I mean, at a certain point, the question is, what's wrong with me? And we've set up the system to work that way because Harvard, for example, my alma mater, and I think one of the worst perpetrators of this anti-Asian discrimination, has set itself up to justify and meet the standards of historical affirmative action laws to say that they're not discriminating based on race. They're just using other attributes like personality scores.
Yeah, it's your personality.
It's amazing. It's actually just codified. You thought you were making the problem better. You made it 10 times worse. And it's the same thing they did with respect to the so-called, Harvard's words, not mine, the Jewish problem that Harvard had only decades ago. And so at the end of the day, put yourself in the shoes of this kid. It's not the end of the world. He's going to get into a perfectly fine state school. He's going to go on and get a great education and live a normal life. Well, look, if you're in his shoes, he's still the same talent that should have gotten into one of the nation's top schools. Maybe we can even reinvent our definition of what it means to be a top school. If the top schools are the schools that we call the top schools 30 years ago aren't meritocratic institutions, why on earth should the places that I went, Harvard and Yale, be permanently crowned as the top schools for the next century when they're not actually behaving that way? So what do we do from here? Part of it's not just forgiveness and some sort of passivity and some sort of I'm not I don't aim to be a theological figure here by high-mindedness. That's beyond my pay grade. But I mean, in terms of I use forgiveness more as a self-interested form of that forgiveness. That's the sort of Kantian case, the Immanuel Kant self-interested rationality. People miss that Immanuel Kant's version of the golden rule came not from a belief in Christ or a belief in God, but a belief in cold-hearted rationality. That rationality demanded that you treat others as you want to be treated, because that's ultimately what empowers him to say that, I might have gone to that state school, but the state school might actually become what it means to have gone to a good school because they were smart enough to accept me. And I was smart enough to be able to work hard and still make my own way in this world. And so that story is still yet to be written. So the story isn't over yet, but I would prefer to see it go in that direction through the revival of meritocracy, through new structures, through new institutions, rather than to wallow in one's own victimhood and expect recompense or sorrow as a consequence. And the answer is to reject victimhood at every turn. By the way, tell that guy if he wants a job in media to call me when he's done with his state school education.
Let him know. Be happy to talk to him. So that leads us to what if we don't? What if we go the wrong way? What if we stay wallowing in victimhood? I mentioned this the other day. I heard a great quote in a book I'm reading. It was, "Suffering is universal, victimhood is a choice." And so if we decide to choose victimhood more and more and more on both sides, we wind up changing the whole American experiment. We find out very soon we were never Rome. We were something else entirely. We were Carthage, which I didn't go to Harvard. So explain Carthage and how we might be Carthage instead of Rome, and China might be Rome.
Well, so I draw an extended allegory in the book between the Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage, the two great empires of their day. We indulge ourselves by asking ourselves whether we were Rome. Greg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs famously said, in a way that was supposed to be a critical assessment of America, that we might be Rome, referring to the fall. The thing I say in the book is the Roman Empire lasted thousands of years. We should be so lucky as to be Rome. We might actually be Carthage, one of the other empires that Rome went on to defeat at many points along the way. This was one of them. And one of the islands that drew them into conflict was Sicily. I worry that Taiwan might be our modern version of Sicily. And that if, there's the famous thought experiment of the Thucydides trap, Graham Allison popularized it, which said that effectively when you have an empire in decline and another rising empire, they're inevitably destined to enter into physical conflict. Well, that maps on pretty well to where we are, not only with Rome and Carthage, a couple thousand years ago, but with America and China today. And so I do spend some time going into the book into some detail on what's at stake. I mean, why does China care about invading Taiwan? It's not just about national pride. It's not just about hubris. This is not Putin invading Ukraine. People miss this about Xi Jinping. They're playing a long game. Taiwan is the mothership of the global semiconductor industry, Taiwan Semiconductor Company and many other Taiwan TSMC, as well as many other companies in Taiwan. These are the world's leaders in producing the semiconductors that power our iPhones, that power our computers, that power our refrigerators, that power our modern way of life. And the United States is decades behind. China has, for their part, been decades behind too. So people forget this is as much as we might worry about the Chinese revival of meritocracy and they don't have DEI over there, that's a competitive advantage for them and their engineers. They do have a command and control system that doesn't actually work to spawn innovation either. But one of the things they do have increasingly is military might. They might use that. I predict starting actually next month starts the clock, Megyn. I've long said this. Xi Jinping takes his third term, unprecedented third term as leader of the Chinese Communist Party. It's a two-term system otherwise. He wasn't going to rock the boat before that. He wasn't going to take the risk of going to Taiwan before that. But I think the window between next month and, say, January 2025, when the next U.S. president could take office, that's the window we're talking about here, when I think China is likely to make a move for Taiwan. And that, I think, may call America's bluff over the course of the last several years. Our bluff militarily. I go through some naval analysis in terms of comparing the strength of our Navy versus China's and comparing how that might come to a head over Taiwan. But even our educational bluff in terms of whether or not we were prepared with the technical and technological talent and prowess to be able to compete in a world where China has full control of the global semiconductor supply chain rather than the United States. And so what's at stake? What if we don't? What if we remain committed to victimhood? That's our path to a millennium from now, being a bunch of maybe 5 centuries from now, maybe 2 centuries from now, being a bunch of Chinese slaves that look like the ones in Shenzhen today. Shenzhen may be a preview of what's to come in the state of Indiana or the state of California. I say that to be provocative, but not because it's actually so preposterous. And at the end of the day, I said this before, I'll say it again, it may be necessity that compels us to actually get our act together, to revive merit, to revive that shared pursuit of excellence. I hope that my book or other speakers on this topic, I hope efforts through the private sector, like what I'm trying to do through Strive in our economy, through others. I hope brave leaders who step up in our different institutions can compel a better return to our path towards excellence in the meantime. But if it's not going to happen organically, it's going to happen out of necessity. And I predict that biggest catalyst that I can see in the next couple of years is the rise of China, particularly catalyzed by its intentions coming to a head through its invasion or else a blockade of Taiwan, which is going to hit us here at home far harder than Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine ever did.
There is a growing sense of instability and uncertainty in America these days. The price of everything seems to be way up. Food prices especially have the nation reeling. But what if you could grow your own food? Hear me out. Let me introduce you to ARC Seed Kits. This is so cool. ARC Seed Kits is a family-owned and operated business providing heirloom seeds for over 13 years. Now, ARC Seeds wants to get heirloom seeds into every home in America. 99% of seeds sold today do not have the ability to reproduce. Only heirloom seeds can be harvested and regrown year after year. ARC's desire to equip every home in America with the ability to grow and harvest its own food led it to create the all-in-one seed kit. It's designed to grow calorie-dense vegetables and fruits that will sustain any home at any time. You'll even get a seed guide, you'll need that when you start, that's going to give you everything you need to know about growing and harvesting every variety included in the kit. For a limited time, we have partnered with ARC to offer a 10% discount code. So go to arcseedkits.com, ARK, and enter MK Seeds to get your 10% discount code. And be on your way to food and economic security, helping you, your family, and your community. Again, it's ARC, spelled ARK, seedkits.com, arcseedkits.com to order your seed kits today, arcseedkits.com, and use the code MK Seeds to get your discount. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.